So every year for my calculus class, I think about whether I should share something with the seniors or not. And usually I decide not to because I feel like I don't have anything that's beyond the general platitudes of, like, you know, persevere or seize the day or whatever, things like that. All right, but this morning at 4:45, for whatever reason, my brain woke up and I had an idea. And so this could turn out to be terrible, or it could turn out to be really good. I've practiced 3/4 of this one time, so we'll see how it goes here, okay? The title of this is What We Did and What to Do. So I'll tell you a little bit about, I'll tell you a story about complexity, okay? The image here is of the path of what's called a double pendulum. A double pendulum is kind of an idealized thought experiment that consists of 2 levers and 2 hinges, okay? So you can see a hinge right here, and then the 2 levers are hinged together here. And in this idealized situation, there is no friction. Only gravity acts on the pendulum. So what you can do is you can drop the pendulum from anywhere, really, and then watch the thing go and track its path, okay? And so I'm going to show you that. And this is a screenshot of it happening, okay? So let's see if I can make it work here. There we go. Okay, so I can set this at whatever angle I want to. Maybe we'll put it here. And we can watch it go. We can turn on trace so you can kind of see the path. And you can see that really it's quite unpredictable, right? So like if you were to take and stop it and then adjust the lever a little bit, you wouldn't probably be able to draw the actual path. And we can also set it so we can see the whole path when we're done. So if I stop it now, you can see the entire path that it took. That'd be pretty hard to predict, all right? It turns out it's basically impossible to predict what path it's going to take. But what's really startling about this to me is that we can turn the ghost on, and the ghost is, hold on, let's reset it, sorry. The ghost is going to change the angle of one of the levers by 0.001 degrees, okay? So it's barely going to change it at all. And so when I play it, you'll see both paths, the one that's there, and then the one that's adjusted by 0.001 degree, 1/1000th of a degree, okay? So let's watch that for a second. So they start off pretty close together, but you can see there's the ghost that starts to separate. You can stop it and look at the paths together. It's a little bit difficult to see, but you can see radically different paths, okay? This is an example of a chaotic system. Maybe you've heard of like the butterfly effect, right? Small changes make large impacts later on in the system. A chaotic system is an example of a complex system. And what's true about complex systems is that small changes in the initial state make unpredictable changes in the end state of the system, okay? And I'll show you one more example of a complex system here, and you'll see why this is relevant here in a second, okay? Let's see if this still works. It does, okay? This is a fractal, and this tree right here, I think basically looks like a tree, maybe a bush, I don't know, but was generated by taking this pattern and repeating it on every branch over and over and over and over again, okay? So that's how that tree was generated. On the next screen, you're gonna see what happens when I take that, I think I shortened the middle branch, and instead of it having a slight angle, which is causing that bend in the tree, I made it go vertical. So let's look at the difference here. Just a small change in the initial condition creates a radically different outcome, okay? And this is true of complex systems. So complex systems have this feature where small changes in the initial state create unpredictable outcomes later on in the system, okay? We are complex systems, each one of you. As a human being, as a member of a bunch of other human beings, you are not only a complex system, but you exist within complex systems. That's a lot of complexity going on. That means that outcomes with things that we do are sometimes quite unpredictable. And so the question is, like, what do we do with that information? So like there were things that happened to you when you're in your mother's uterus that you weren't aware of, obviously, but that impacted your outcome later on, right? Small changes in initial conditions big changes later on. I'll tell you a little bit about our past. This is the history of existing life. It's like 4 billion years, something like that. It's very hard to read. At the bottom, you have like bacteria way down here, long time ago, right? If you follow up the tree, you can see like here, we got starfish over here, the bony fish split right here, I think. We are way up here at the top, primates. We actually don't have human beings on there, just have primates. But right here at the tippy top, okay? If you track the branch all the way down, all of the DNA, all of the evolution that happened to get to here is in you at some level, right? If you look at like an example of like an embryo, you'll see that like an embryo has like a tail that disappears as it grows for most of us. And so we are everything up to there, all right? So when you think about like you as a person, you're fish, you're mammal, there's a lot of things from the past that you are kind of built into you. It's a pretty impressive thing, actually. All of your ancestors were the ones that survived. Like you're at the end of the evolutionary like timeline for right now, and everyone that like was before you made it, right? That's pretty cool, I think. So who cares? If we're a complex system, and we are built on all of these things that led to us, then we might think like, well, how should I try to ensure that I'm not going to make a decision now that is going to be catastrophic or problematic or whatever later on in my life? Here's a few things I think are true, okay? When we were older, in our past, like our ancestors, right? We were outside. Right. We adapted to the environment that we were in, and that environment was not indoors, right? It was outside for like 99.9% of our life. All right, so it stands to reason that if we are an organism that adapted to being outside, then a change, like being inside a lot, is not going to be exactly how we were wired, right? What we were wired for. So I think it would be good to be outside as much as possible. Like when I said on Fridays, I would often say go outside. This is what I was talking about. It's like get outside and get away from artificial lights if you can. Do what the people in your past did. We moved a lot, right? We not only just moved from place to place, we were nomadic, but also we picked up heavy things. We sometimes ran. We walked a lot. Our lives consisted of doing physical things, right? So not a bad idea probably to, as you go out into your future, to do physical things. Lift heavy things, walk, run, move your body, do things like that. We ate real food. There were no Skittles, right? There were no Cocoa Puffs. There was no Mountain Dew, right? These are all new creations. And here's the thing. We talked about being a complex system. Those new creations are novel. Novel meaning new and unfamiliar. In fact, there's a biologist named Brett Weinstein. He calls it hyper-novel, okay? Hyper-novel things. And when you put those hyper-novel things that we didn't adapt to, into the system, we don't know what the effects will be later on. Now we know some of them, right? We know that like if you drink 4 Mountain Dews a day long enough, like that's probably not good, right? We know some of them. But think about that. Like, is the thing that I'm doing a hyper-novel thing for the system that I am as a human being? So we ate real food. We ate meat, vegetables, fruits, those kinds of things, like actual food. Okay? We daydreamed. Okay? Every organism that led to us solved problems. In fact, that's one of the things about human beings. We're tremendous problem solvers. That's why our heads, our brains are so big. So big that like, well, I'm going to get into childbirth. But anyway, we solved problems. We thought about things. We had periods of time where we were bored, right? And we thought, I wonder if we did things this way, if it would be better. What if we did this? What if we tried this? I've been working on this problem. And we thought about things. We daydreamed. We were creative problem solvers. And finally, we sat around campfires. So I have a kind of a cool quote here in a second about this. But we were social, right? At the end of the day, we solved all the problems that we could. And we sat around a fire for warmth, but it was also a social thing. So if you've ever had the chance to sit around a campfire, you know that for most people, it's a pretty enjoyable thing. And that's because a lot of people before you, even before we were people as we might think of ourselves as people, did this same thing, right? We discussed the problems of the day. We talked about what we might be doing tomorrow. And ultimately, we also told stories. We told stories because that's how we convey wisdom and knowledge, right? right? The Enlightenment was like a few hundred years ago. That's like nothing, okay? So when we wanted to convey knowledge or wisdom, we told stories around a campfire. I love this quote here. It says, "Before men ever dreamed of shelter, campfires were their homes. Here they gathered and made their first plans for communal living, for tribal hunts and raids. Here, for centuries, they dreamed vague dreams and became slowly aware of the first faint glimmerings and nebulous urges that eventually were to widen the gulf between them and the primitive darkness from which they sprang." So I think if you can do those things as you go forward, if you try to keep your literally grounded, literally keep yourself grounded into the things that that we evolved to be in, the environments that we evolved to be in. I like the quote that is like, "You are what you repeatedly do," right? And so I'm not saying that you should never like look at an iPhone, right? I'm not saying that you should never have Skittles. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying think about what might be good for you, might be good for the system that you evolved to be, right? The environment that you adapted to live within, which is a little bit, or maybe a lot of it, different than what the environments we usually inhabit. So I want to thank you for taking calculus. You guys didn't have to take this class, or maybe you did, don't tell me. I'm just going to assume it was a choice. Thank you for taking my class. Thank you for making this year a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I hope you guys all have all your dreams come true and your wishes and whatever. Don't be a stranger. Shoot me an email sometimes if you think of it, or come back and say hi. If I see you in the store, say hi as well. All right. So thank you.